Hello, good evening and welcome to SKTV. You're watching the Manipur Files. I'm Utpala Longjam, your host. In a notable act of community cooperation, Zilu PAITE, a PAITE woman from None district, was found in Kakching district, was an area predominantly inhabited by the MEITEI community. Zilu, the wife of T. James PAITE, was handed over to local residents by the local residents to Arambai Tengol, Unit 59, an indigenous group. Demonstrating humanity amidst ongoing strife, the AT Unit 59 safely returned her to the local police authorities. This incident highlights the prevailing sense of solidarity among communities who reject the separatist agendas driving much of the violence. It also sheds light on the underlying dynamics of the current conflict in Manipur. While some view the turmoil as an ethnic or communal clash, it is increasingly clear that the violence is largely fueled by a small number of narco-terrorist groups within the Kuki community. Reports suggest that at least 25 armed groups allegedly involved in narcotic trade are contributing to the destabilization of the region. Rather than a simple ethnic confrontation, the ongoing conflict appears to be a complex struggle exacerbated by external actors who profit from violence and division. The peaceful resolution of incidents like the one involving Zilu PAITE stands as a testament to the potential for unity and cooperation among the local communities who reject the influence of these disruptive groups. Such actions are significant in context of conflict as they demonstrate that individuals from opposing sides can come together, prioritizing human dignity over division. This could be a step toward healing and building a more harmonious environment in the region. Today's topic is PAITE woman released, MEITEI kindness defies conflict. To delve into this crucial topic, we are joined by a distinguished panel of experts who will share their insights and perspectives. I'd like to welcome our panelists for tonight. We have Mr. KHURAIJAM ATHOUBA, Working President, IPSA. Welcome to the Manipur Files, Mr. KHURAIJAM ATHOUBA. Next, we have Mr. PRADIP PHANJOUBAM, Editor, Imphal Review of Art and Politics. Welcome to the Manipur Files, Mr. PHANJOUBAM. And last but not the least, we have Mr. NABAKISHORE, former Chief Secretary. Welcome to the Manipur Files, Mr. NABAKISHORE. Once again, a warm welcome to our three panelists, and we are privileged to have you here in the studio tonight. Let's begin right away. My first question, the opening question will be for Mr. KHURAIJAM ATHOUBA. There have been some confusions regarding the ethnicity of the PAITE woman, with rumors circulating that she may not belong to the PAITE community, but that her husband is PAITE. Regardless of her actual ethnicity, wouldn't the MEITEI community still show the same level of compassion? After all, the MEITEIs have previously shown kindness by releasing Kukizo individuals in the past during the conflict. How do these acts of kindness by MEITEI community contrast with the prevailing narrative of violence in the ongoing conflict?
If we look at the identity of the lady who have been caught, her ID is being identified as Zilu PAITE.
Okay.
And when she was trying to make some payment through her GPay account,
right.
It turns out to be the same name, Zilu PAITE.
Okay.
So there cannot be any confusion that from the person. They will definitely identify her as a, one of the Kuki groups. So later on, after further investigation, I mean, then only people got to know that she originally happens to be a Rongmei or Kabui, married to a PAITE person, and her husband is also no more. So that's the history, that's the record. But however, we identify people from their IDs and their bank account names and all.
Absolutely.
So when you identify that, it clearly shows that she's a PAITE lady. So definitely, if whatever the other side of the narrative always try to conclude that, they always have an attempt to demonize the entire community, that, that the MEITEI communities are completely intolerant against the entire Kuki community, which is completely wrong. And this very incident, even after identifying that the very lady is a PAITE, she has been rescued, she has been, you know, handed over to the safely to the responsible local Arambai Tengol unit. Then they also responsibly handed over to the concerned police, so that the lady could be, you know, safely returned to their homes. So that was the wonderful gesture carried out, and it's not manipulated, it's not you know, scripted, or it's not a design kind of act. So it's very natural act, and it also proves that you know, there is certain, you know, truth where humanity exists still among the MEITEI community, which the other side of the Kuki separatist group try to demonize it, which is not completely correct. And it also, I think it also rejects the agenda of those separatist propagandist people who always try to, you know, exclude themselves from the entire the idea of inclusive Manipur that we have been, you know, coexisting together. So we always say that there are certain, you know, we never blame the entire community as a whole. We have been trying to single out those responsible people, groups of people who are pursuing this agenda for separate administration. Right from day one of 3rd May 2023, our declaration against, like the Kokomi has declared a war against Chin-Kuki narco-terrorists. So it was a war declared on Chin-Kuki narco-terrorists, not towards the entire Chin-Kuki community as a whole. But the separatist group, they tried to you know, manipulate this narrative in a different way to serve their interest. So that interest have been gradually begins to unfold in front of the entire, you know, country and entire global community. So I think now with enough time been taken to resolve this crisis, those false narratives which has been taking round in the entire, you know, media forums and different different forums even in the entire globe, it is now beginning to unfold, and it won't take much longer, because as we all know that ultimately truth prevails. So truth is where it will ultimately, you know, end up. So we are looking forward to that, and this gesture is a very good initiative and very responsible act, both from the local community, both from the Arambai Tengol unit, as well as the police personnel, which the Kuki separatist groups always say that MEITEI police, then Arambai Tengols are, you know, MEITEI terrorists, and the local MEITEIs are entire, what do you say, what did they say, MEITEI rapist. Those are the words they use. But this very incident has completely rejected all those unfounded allegations towards the entire MEITEI community.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. KHURAIJAM. I'll come back to you in the next round. So, well, the truth is unfolding now, as Mr. KHURAIJAM rightly said, and this was a very good gesture from the MEITEI community. So, coming to that, my next question for Mr. PHANJOUBAM. Yes, we are definitely talking about how the truth will prevail and how humanity still exists. But let's go back to past incidents where individuals from the MEITEI community unknowingly entered Kuki-dominated areas and were never heard from again. For instance, Linthoing Anbi and Hemanjit, 2 students who went missing on July 6th of 2023, and 2 MEITEI youths were held for 5 days from September 27, 2024 before being released in exchange for 11 Kuki under trial prisoners from the Sajiwa Central Jail in Imphal. Although officials have refrained from linking the 2 incidents, Kotu and referred to it as an exchange. Not to forget the tragic incident in Jiribam where 6 people, including 3 women and 3 children, one as young as 10 months, were murdered in cold blood. If compassion had been shown during these moments, how might the situation have unfolded differently today?
No, I think both sides went to the extreme in the beginning. You cannot say, we cannot excuse one or the other. They went to the extreme, and these laws of compassion should have existed from the very beginning here. Wars have law, Right. And these laws should have been applied. And in the laws of war, you're not supposed to kill civilians. You're not supposed to kill target non-combatants.
Right.
Those kind of things went completely missing in the beginning. So you have so many people killed who should not have been. And that happened on both sides. It's not just one side. No, I don't think we should cherry pick and describe the scene in the way we want it. There is a particular picture in which all went out of the way, out of control, and there's so much of gory violence which should not have happened at all. There were people killed who should not have been killed, and those kind of things were being excused in the lame kind of slogan that everything is fair in love and war. The thing is, civilization doesn't agree with that. You can go back to the law of the animals, then you can say everything is fair in love and war. But civilization is actually about overcoming that kind of an animal instinct. But for a time, I think animal instinct ruled, and now a semblance of that compassion is returning, and I think we should celebrate it instead of using this again as a tool. No, this is one side is better than the other, and that kind of thing. I think that kind of rhetoric can again revert us back to that old animosity. I think it should be just celebrated. This humanity is still existing, and this is one of those few drops in the cauldron. I mean, for so far it's been boiling. Out of that, something like this has emerged, and I think we should just celebrate it without even saying who did it and what did it and who is better and who is not. We have seen very bad atrocities in the during the start of the conflict and for a long time. And such sparks of goodness, sparks of what John Paul Lederach has called the moral imagination has emerged. And I hope it is the first spark which will also ignite bigger flames of love and kindness and compassion and humanity. This has not happened for a long time, and I hope this will be the beginning. And normally, according to so many conflict scholars, this actually happens. You give hate, you'll get back hate. You start giving love, and then you also get back love. And also you give away kindness, and that kindness will be reciprocated by kindness. That is how war should end. And in fact, war should not happen at all. But if it has happened, it should end. It should be ended. The conclusion should come from humanity, from the realization that humanity exists, and humanity is there in all of us. And I would like to cite one very good way of putting this by an author called Judith Butler. She is a feminist, and she actually inverses the Hegelian logic of who am I, the question of who am I. Hegel is going to say, I am who I am because I'm not you. I'm different from you. So that difference is emphasized. But Judith Butler is actually saying we can ask the same question in a different way. Rephrasing the question, we can say, what will I be without you? And even my enemies, even those people I think are enemies, if they were not there, my personality would have been changed. If Pakistan was not there, India's identity itself would have changed. So the implication is, in even all the people around you, as well, including those you don't like, they have actually made you. So you should be grateful in a way. And in fact, I just met some people in Nagaland very recently, and there was one fellow who came out with this without actually thinking of it, that you love your neighbor. He says you should love your enemy because most likely they are your neighbors. You don't go and hate strangers. You only hate people or you fight people who are your neighbors, who are your close and who should have been your brothers or sisters. And this is true in every situation. Right. You don't, most of the, say, land disputes are between brothers and sisters. Dividing their parental property. Like that, your enemies are also people who would have, it's the other side of love, that people who should have been very close to you and who are actually physically very close to you, and they become your enemy. You don't go and pick up a fight with somebody from Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan. You don't even know them, so there is no question of enmity or anything. So those people you get to hate or get to fight are those people who you actually should be loving and treat as neighbors. And the better way of doing this is to be good neighbors.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Phanjoubam. I'll come back to you. So we should overcome the animal instinct, and this gesture should be celebrated, and to prove that humanity still exists. So coming to Mr. NABAKISHORE, the next question: the different approaches taken by the two communities in the ongoing conflict, focusing on the reasons behind the Kuki's actions and the Meitei's desire for peace and stability is very clear. It prompts a deeper exploration of historical, social and political contexts that influence the behavior and demands of both groups in Manipur. Could you explain why the Kukis continue their violent actions and demand separate administration while the Meiteis have consistently focused on preserving peace and unity in Manipur?
Utpala, actually, so long, especially the Kukijo leaders, especially one MLA, they have been talking the language of retribution. No? And of course, there has been instances, but before they take revenge on the Meitei communities, perhaps they think that they are not happy or they are not satisfied. They feel that it's their achievement to take revenge on the Meitei communities. But I think we have to forget the past and we have to move forward. But before I coming to that, before your question, why the Kuki peoples are angry or not satisfied with the Meiteis, of course they may be having certain grievances which may not be appreciated by the Meitei communities, and maybe the unbalanced kind of economic growth, I think in terms of infrastructure, the hill areas, not only the Kukijo areas, but also those areas inhabited by the Nagas, they also lack some kind of infrastructure. This is all historical result, as well as the geographical kind of factors have also affected. If you compare Manipur with Mumbai or Kolkata or Delhi, Northeast region, especially Manipur, is very backward. It's all because of geographical as well as historical reason. This kind of difference in development is looked upon by certain communities, maybe by the Kukijo, as some kind of discrimination against them in terms of allocation of funds for development. I mean, this is a question which needs a lot of analysis. I cannot often say that whether the Kuki area gets less fund or more fund. But of course, both government of India and state governments have been making efforts to develop all these hill areas also equally. Lots of roads are under construction by the NHIDCL. So development is one part. Second part is some kind of anthropological kind of expression, in the sense that Meiteis have adopted this Hinduism some 200-300 years back, and on the other hand, Kukijo also adopted Christianity some about 100 or 100 years back. So there is a question of untouchabilities and pure, impure, that also help in segregation of the Meiteis from the Kukijos. That also can create some kind of dissatisfaction among the Kukijos. There may be many other factors which has led to the this demand for separate administration. If they have a separate administration, they feel that they will get funds flowing directly from the central government to them, not through the state government. That will help them develop their regions. And they also, administratively as well as politically, they also feel that they may have much more freedom in deciding what is their priority or what is their development needs. So this lots of factors are behind that. Of course, these factors are many. It requires lots of academic kind of studies. But coming back to the positive side of this event, where some Meitei, Rambai Tengol and others rescued this PAITE woman and handed over to the Rambai Tengol and then next to the police. This is something, a good gesture, It is something like, we can say that it's like after long winter, we have a spring coming and the branches are sprouting with shoots and something like that, beautiful time is coming, This message should go out to the other side, to the Kukijo communities, and we also expect some kind of reciprocity from their end, showing kindness and some kind of compassion from either side. You know, as PRADIP says, you know, enmity begets enmity, love begets love. You know, so one is you know, helping the reinforcement of the other kind of emotion. So there are lots of spirituality also. Actually, I think we can certainly invoke both Christian religion as well as Hindu religions in trying to bring these two communities closer together. You know, in Christianity, they say that do to others what you want others to do unto you. You know,
yes.
So I mean, if you don't want to, want others to harm you, don't harm others. You know, I mean, if you give, you know, what you call kindness, the other will also give kindness. In other Hindu philosophy also, you know, seeing the distinctions between the Kuki-Jo community and the MEITEI-Jo community as a distinct kind of communities, it also may not be correct. All of us belong to the Mongoloid communities, and when the British officers did the classification of the language, even Manipuri language was classified as a Kuki-Chin language. They may be doing it rightly or wrongly, but they show it as a homogeneous kind of a group, you know. And if you look a little further, perhaps looking at the Vedanta and others, you know, or the Bhagavad Gita says that, you know, the soul is the same, you know, the soul in you and the soul in Kuki or soul in the MEITEI, they are the same. They are the part of the supreme, you know, God or Almighty. Maybe some people, Hindus call it Lord Krishna, maybe the Christians call them the God. So if we don't see the distinctions, you know, among us, rather if we see it as a human being, you know, then perhaps we can try to, you know, forget our differences and we can just come closer together and love each other. You know, love is something perhaps which can help us in bridging the gap between the communities and bringing peace in the communities. And one good thing is that in the last about 1 month or so, the social media is also not having so much of very what you call critical or very abusive languages, you know. I think that has subsided a little bit. That's good. Sometimes social media also plays a big role in escalating the violence or hatred against each other, you know. If you talk the language of love and affection, the other party also perhaps may reciprocate in the same way. And of course, the question is that there are some other people, some section of the people who would certainly don't like to speak the language of love and peace. They are more interested in speaking the language of hatred. Perhaps they have a vested interest in the violence. But overall, if we look at Manipur, you know, everybody is suffering. Kuki people are also suffering. MEITEI is suffering. Naga is suffering. Pangal is suffering. So in the interest of all communities, it's time to speak the language of love.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. O. Nabakishore. Yes, it is time to speak the language of love, and this gesture should go a long way. But let's look at the other side. For to the question for Mr. ATHOUBA KHURAIJAM, we also have a couple of group of people in the MEITEI communities who say that if the situation had been reversed, the Kuki-Zo, Kotu or ITLF might have either killed the individuals or used them as leverage to further their terrorist demands. Some believe MEITEI shouldn't have acted with compassion, but as they say, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Does showing grace in adversity make the MEITEI community stronger or more vulnerable?
We have never come across any such teachings from any forms of religions or, you know, any form of divine thoughts or anywhere that evil could be defeated by evil, hatred could be defeated by hatred. There is a popular saying that, you know, in order to overcome evils, what you need is to act with good and kindness. Then only you can defeat the evil. So it's not like anger cannot be defeated with anger. It has to be defeated with peace and love. That is how the teaching goes. So maybe, as Tamo Pradip has rightly mentioned, that there were instances and there are also still people who have that, what do you say, the feeling of revenge, avenging, because there are several other victims, innocent victims, who have been, tortured, disappeared, killed. So many unfortunate incidents has already taken places, and those people's, the surviving families or relatives of those victims, their feelings are different.
Yes.
Their emotions are high, their sentiments are very high,
right,
and they have a different sense of feeling. So it has also needs to be, considered in up to a certain level. But if we look at the entire issues, this is not just a mere individual fight. This is not just a mere communal fight.
Right.
This is not an ethnic conflict, as to how the latest version of Home Ministers, if we caught that. This is not like that. There are larger political aspects which needs to be thoroughly discussed and looked into with cool mind, not with anger, not with hatred, not with emotions, and not with knee-jerk reactions. So that is what we have been missing for a quite long time. And it's now been almost, how many months? 18, 19 months, 20 months running, I think. So we have been missing that. That is why we are also trying to, discuss with all the stakeholders and, find out certain avenues, explore certain avenues where humanitarian aspects can also be, brought up and addressed. Because without that, there is a popular saying that one act of kindness can, conquer 100 hatreds. That is what, people often learn, and experience in the past also. So that act of kindness is what we have been missing from both sides of the, warring groups. So we need to segregate people in different aspects, because even among the Chin Kuki Joe groups, it is not the entire community that's involved.
Right.
There are certain groups of people. We have already identified those groups of people. We have already identified. So those are the one which needs to be handled with firm hands. Those are the aggressors. We have two type of people now among the Chin Kuki Joe communities. One group, larger group, is the civilian groups. Majority of them are innocent. They have no, all those hatred thing, this and that. There are also another groups who are the aggressors. They have set their political demand very clear, and every act, every narratives, every propaganda which they have been floating since the 3rd of May are just to achieve their set objectives.
Exactly. So, may I interrupt you there? Now, we're talking about the political agenda. Do you think that the other group that you're talking about, do you think they will let peace prevail? Because we've seen that so far they've always been provoked, some sort of a provocation, and then the peace, the temporary peace that we face becomes. We've had episodes. So please continue about that.
That's what we have been saying, even to different level of the government officials, and even to Home Minister himself, that whatever that had happened in 3rd of May, it was a premeditated, designed kind of violent act, just to create the circumstances where the demand for separate administration could be justified.
Right.
It's evident now. We have list of evidences. If you connect the dots, if you apply some logic, how the violence erupted, what was the pretext of inciting this violence, what were the reason to storm towards the nearest MEITEI villages, all these things. If you apply all those logics, it is very clear that it's a premeditated and designed act of violence to justify their demand. They created the circumstances. So this needs to be singled out now. That is why we are saying that those aggressors, the prime aggressors are those narco-terrorist groups who are in suspension of operation with the government of India, the 25 groups. They are the key drivers. And they also have their agencies in different level, like the certain MLAs, certain CSO leaders, certain groups who just came out from the during this conflict, certain groups.
Right.
So all those groups needs to be handled in a different way. They all need to be brought into justice.
Okay.
And coming to your point, if we remember when the newly appointed governor visited Churachandpur,
yes,
he had a interaction or meeting with the ITLF people, and in that discussion, the governor said, let's restore peace, then we can discuss any form of political dialogue, or any sort of dialogue can be initiated after that. We can discuss everything.
Right.
But you know what did the ITLF responded? It's already in the media. No? They said, first separate administration, then only peace. Which means that they are not going to give up. They will keep pursuing and creating certain situations until and unless their demands are met. So this particular violent act, continuous act of violence, is being driven by those people who are demanding that set of separate administration or whatever. And when the recent Cookie Joe Council delegates, 8-member delegates visited and met with the Home Affairs Ministry officials,
right,
the same things again came up. They said, the ministry officials said, let's restore peace first, then we can have a political dialogue afterwards. Then what did they say? No peace before, without separate administration.
Okay.
So it is now crystal clear that those group of people, the aggressors group of people, they are pursuing this act of violence, they are continuing this, they want to sustain this until and unless their political demands are met, which means that this violence is being sustained by those groups of people.
Right.
It is not from the other side. MEITEI don't have MEITEI groups, whoever, if you quote anyone, Arambai Tengol, Khun Ngakba, whatever, village volunteers, like civil societies, Kokomi, then other CSOs, do we have a demand that we will restore peace if you give this demand?
Right.
There is no call at all. And we don't even have a purpose to have a dialogue with any groups. Because why do we have to come and sit on the table? There isn't any agenda at all. We don't have a purpose.
Yes.
So it is, for us, we will talk with the government of India if need be. If need arises, we will discuss. We'll have dialogue with them. We'll discuss. They are responsible. They are the government. But I don't find any reason to discuss with those aggressors who are justifying violence to pursue their political demand.
Right.
They can carry out any form of democratic protest. They can do rallies, they can organize seminars, workshops, sit in protest, do whatever possible protest. But why do you have to kill MEITEI civilians?
Yes.
Why do you have to kill infant child?
Exactly.
Why do you have to abduct women and children just to pursue your separate administration demand? Where on earth will people accept that kind of action?
Right.
So these things needs to be clearly sorted out. We should not confuse. We should not confuse this conflict with some other municipal administrations, development, welfare scheme, their discontentment, grievances, whatever, community grievances. Those cannot be, those cannot be solved by killing each other. So let's not discuss on that line. If we start discussing on that line, we are completely undermining those serious criminal act, terrorist act, which they are committing.
Right.
For the past almost 2 years. So it needs to be thoroughly looked in that way. So coming to the point we raised on this debate, we being a majority responsible group and the responsible community in the state, we must try to explore avenues to open certain humanitarian corridor, which is very important. This is going to be a very this is going to give a huge setback to those people who are using violence as a means to pursue their demand. If you keep on responding with like an eye for an eye kind of thing, then we are the one who is going to lose in the long run, because the entire agenda, entire narratives that they have been falsely blaming towards the MEITEI, it's going to be later on proved to be true if we keep on responding the way they want us to respond.
Right.
So we have to use some other way, and opening a humanitarian corridor is very important, and it needs to be discussed with all stakeholders, and people also need to start thinking on that line, because there are innocent children, aged persons, and ill people who needs to also get access to medical facilities, to educations, to communications, all these things. So those civilians who are not involved in this entire, act of aggression, they needs to be given their rightful space where they deserve.
Absolutely.
So it needs to be pursued, and now it's the right time, because people have already started, demonstrating their act of kindness, and the recent incident is one of the symbolic act, and this kind of act also needs to be initiated, not just accidentally happen. It should be initiated, and we should develop a new sense of ideas where evil needs to be defeated with kindness and love and compassion.
All right, thank you so much for your views, Mr. KHURAIJAM. I'll come to Mr. PHANJOUBAM. Well, Mr. KHURAIJAM just spoke about the humanitarian corridor that needs to be opened now to be explored. But again, we're talking about the aggressors and people with vested interests who will not let peace prevail. What would you like to say on that? And also, like the past events, including exchange of prisoners and the murders in Jirebam, suggest the act of kindness or grace was overshadowed by cycle of retaliation and violence. What would you like to say on that?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's not a very fair kind of equation when you say one side is only demanding, the other side is only saying demanding nothing, because you have let's take another example. You have the Indian state, and there are people demanding something with the rebellion here, Nagaland. They are demanding something. They will demand. Indian state is not going to demand anything. They just want a status quo, because their status quo is enough for them. I think that kind of equation is here as well. The MEITEIs, they want a status quo. You don't have to demand anything. Right. And there are other people who are wanting change in that setup. So I think we have to look at it that way and see where possibly there can be change without hurting anybody. I think that's the right approach, instead of saying one side is demanding and the other side is not demanding. The other side who are not demanding are the good, those who are demanding are the bad. Maybe there is something of that in this equation, but you just can't say those who are not demanding it, because that status quo is good for them. The other guys, the other side may be saying that status quo, we have to make some changes, and if that change is going to hurt other people, then we say no. But we have to sit down together and say where the changes can be without hurting anybody, which can benefit everybody. Then I think the conflict logic will be gone altogether. And the other thing is, when you demand something, you posture. And I'm looking at it from a very positive thing. In this present case also, you're demanding, you're putting forward your maximalist position. Well, you can't, when you're bargaining something, you said we don't need anything. That kind of thing won't happen. They will put the maximalist position without probably also believing that will not happen. They will put the maximalist position. It happens in every kind of negotiation. You put the maximalist position and then come down. If you don't put that maximalist position, maybe your final settlement will be much lower. So that kind of maximalist position would be here as well. So I don't think we should attribute too much of importance to the maximalist position that anybody is putting up. So we have to be rational in our judgment and then see where things can be accommodated. And here, the other thing that we have to look for, the goodness gesture and all that, maybe, ultimately, humans are animals. They will, and also they have that aggression instinct, which is what Freud tells us that we are born. Supposing when a child is born, you raise him in a zoo. You put him in touch with anybody. He will grow up he or she will grow up like an animal, right?
Yes.
He or she, that child is not an animal precisely because he is born into certain societies which will teach them the mores of that society, which is what the superego is about. Superego will control that id, what Freud calls. So that kind of thing is what civilization is about. Their control, and how much control. You can't control everything. You have to make adjustments every now and then. And in Freud's theory, it is the ego which does that balancing. The superego and the id, you make the balance. And when you reach that perfect balance, that's what civilization is about. And that kind of thing is happening here as well. So we have to look at it. I see it more of rational positioning. And that rational positioning, we don't have to be thinking in terms of divinity, that you do this, then your soul will be blessed and all that kind of thing. You can just see it in terms of that enlightened self-interest, what Farid Zakaria and other calls the enlightened self-interest. I'm doing this, okay, if I'm in an environment, I have all the riches and my neighbors are all poor. And if I say that all of us should grow together, I give up some of my wealth, that is actually in my own interest, because if everybody else is deprived and I am the only one rich, I will also suffer. That's what enlightened self-interest is, and that is true with everybody. I'm just talking of a very drastic kind of situation. Enlightened self-interest is where everybody agrees this is where we should work together. You encroach into anybody's territory. Say, for instance, in the present context, what are the MEITEI interests? What are the Naga interests? What are Kuki interests? Where is the middle path? That's what we should be finding. We can't push any particular agenda from any side. When you do that, there will be injustice done to one side or the other. So we have to find that middle path. That is what political talk is about. That is what finding that enlightened self-interest of everybody is about, where this is our common interest. If you don't do that, there will be somebody rebelling or there will be trouble. So let's find that path, and we have to agree to that. And also, they also often call this the game theory, where everybody wins, nobody loses. At least nobody loses. You cannot win everything. One side winning always means the other side losing. So everybody has to sacrifice a bit. And this game theory has been defined. And in fact, John has got a Nobel Prize for this, for coming up with this game theory, where everybody don't lose. I mean, you win a bit. You don't win everything, but you win. Everybody wins a bit. Nobody ends up as a loser. That's the best way. And the example they normally use is a prison example, where prisoners sacrifice something. Supposing you, but without that prison thing, I wouldn't. That's is a little more difficult to visualize. You take the traffic example. My freedom is to drive anywhere I want. I sacrifice a bit of that. I say, if I have to turn left, I will turn there. If I have to turn right, there's a designated place where I can turn. When we all do that, we're sacrificing something of our freedom. And the aggregate of what's the sacrifices to the freedom that everybody makes, that aggregates is the freedom for everybody. If I do it alone, if I see only my freedom, if the other person also sees only his freedom, we will have a traffic jam, right? So if you don't want that traffic jam, then we have to look for that enlightened self-interest, and which is about keeping certain laws together. You don't turn left, you don't turn right. You drive on the left side of the road, whichever is the law. If you're in America, you'll be driving on the right side of the road. Those norms you have to keep, and in keeping those norms, you're sacrificing a bit of your own interest. But that little bit of interest, for instance, if I go there, if I turn right, my house is just there. But if I have to, if the law says that there's no right, left turn here, you have to go there. You do that so that everybody enjoys that traffic freedom. And if I start exercising my own freedom, and everybody else starts doing that, that's anarchy. I think we have to make a distinction between freedom and anarchy. Freedom is defined by law. Anarchy is defined by individuals. In anarchy, individuals define their freedom on their own. And in collective freedom, the law defines that freedom for everybody. You do that. My freedom ends where the other man's nose begins. I can swing my fist anywhere I want, but I can't swing it if it hits somebody else's face. That kind of freedom has to be defined in that proper sense. And in defining this, I think I'll just take two more points and then go on. In defining this, I think there are certain destinies. Even in this conflict, we've seen geographical destiny is one of them. Some geographies are integral, that you just can't do without one or the other. Where you have one side of it and not the other, your freedom will be curtailed. And that's kind of thing we're seeing here. And in fact, so many scholars have said that most of the wars that the world has seen is actually predetermined by geography. You have, for instance, even the psychology of people are determined by geography. And Halford Mackinder, for instance, he's written a book called The Geographical Pivot of History, where he says island nations and heartland nations, he call, and the islands he call the rimland nations. They will have different psychology. Japan will have a different psychology. They'll have a different sense of security. Unlike, say, Russia, it is surrounded by other people, or Germany. Poland is next door. What is Poland doing? What is France doing? What is Belgium doing? They'll be always thinking in those terms. Japan doesn't have to do that because they have, or England doesn't have to do that. They will be thinking of their security in different terms. So that kind of thing is always there. So we have to understand these kind of logics, these kind of underlying pressures and compulsions, and then look for those ways of getting away from this, or getting to agree on certain terms. those we have to understand what is embedded, the logics of conflict embedded in people's psychology, and then try to address those. If you don't do that, then I think we will be just heading for problems. If you don't see one side or the other, there will always be a problem. And the last point that I want to make is what you have also referred to, that the idea of reward.
Yes.
There's been a document. It's actually commissioned by the World Bank in 2003, and an economist called Paul Collier was asked to write. This was when after US has invaded Iraq, and then this 2003 is when he was writing this, and the title of that thesis or that particular monograph is the conflict as a market. That you are doing a conflict in the hope of a reward. So the thing that he suggests is that you have to cut that cord. They don't link the reward and a conflict. You have conflict, you'll suffer, nothing else. Your reward won't come. There is no reward at the end of it. If that reward, probably you can also get it by negotiation, but it's not tied to conflict. If it's not tied to any violence that you do. Any violence that you do, there will be retaliations. You will only suffer, nothing else. But there is no reward at the end of it. So he suggests that this link should be made clear, or the severance of the link. That conflict does not have a reward. Now, people are actually made to believe, and also sometimes is always the case, that you do something violent in a hope that the appeasement will come in terms of reward. Once you make it known that there is no reward at the end of it, then the tones as well as the logic for conflict will actually diminish. And I think that is already the approach. There has been always talks. The new governor to the central interlocutors, they've been always saying reconciliation. That language of reconciliation. The demands are not being answered positively. The thing is, you're not rolling out that demand, but it's not linked to your violence. Whatever violence you do is not going to happen. And now there is a posturing, as we are saying, that we will do violence until that reward comes. If that reward is totally cut off, then that violence will have no meaning. So this is what Paul Collier has actually recommended, and I can see that happening already. Some bit of that logic is coming into the way this violence is being dealt with. But as I said as in the beginning, when we draw that equation between those demanding and those not demanding, we can, that's not a fair equation. Some people are happy with the status quo, others are not happy with the status quo. So we have to look for what is the middle part, because things change, and those changes will always happen. Even in my own family, those changes happen. When my kids were 2 years old, I had a different relationship in the family, but when that is no longer the case, we have to make another adjustment here and there, now and there, without hurting anybody, which the new relations always benefiting all. That kind of relationship we have to look for, and all political negotiations or any kind of negotiation should be on that line.
Okay, thank you so much, and very, very insightful indeed. My last question for tonight for Mr. Nabakishore. Well, Mr. Phanjoubam mentioned the middle part that we need to look, and also about the no reward policy. So let's look at the contrasting approaches of violence and provocation by one group and the peace building efforts of the other. So far provides a nuanced view of the ongoing conflict in Manipur. Okay, given the Kuki community's violent actions so far and separatist agenda, how can the MEITEI's commitment to peace and unity contribute to resolving the conflict and fostering coexistence? And also, do you think that how successful do you think the no reward policy would work out? Do you think that we would come to some sort of an agreement if the government takes actions on this particular matter?
In fact, I mean, as ATHOUBA mentioned, the Kukizos had an agenda to drive out all the MEITEIs from the hill areas, especially from Churachandpur or Kangpokpi, in order to make it look as if, I mean, the Kukizos and the MEITEIs cannot live together, So that was their agenda. They were able to achieve that. But had the state government or central government guarded the Meiteis or Kukis at their original places of settlement, had they not allowed them to move away, this situation of the separate administration, which is justified by the Kukis by saying that the Meiteis and the Kukis can no longer live together.
Right.
This kind of justification would have no merit, But initially, especially say when the violence, after the violence started in May 2023, in lots of TV discussions, the leaders of the Kukijo communities on those discussions, they used to say that, oh, can't you see that when the Kukis and the Meiteis, they are living separately, they are physically separated, they are emotionally separated. All kind of drum upping the all the wrong narratives, While there could be some kind of issues of the misunderstanding between the militant groups. Otherwise, by and large, the common people on either side have no have no ill feelings against each other.
Right.
They want to they want to live their normal life. The Meiteis also would like to go back to More, Kangpokpi and Churachandpur,
Yes.
and live their normal life. Similarly, the Kukis also, they also want to come back to Imphal. That is what they want, because they are rooted here. Some Kukis have been living at Imphal for more than 100 years, especially old Lambulan. They have been living, they are just like anybody who are living here, So just again another point about what Athau was saying, he mentioned about humanitarian corridor. This is very good suggestion, I think we can work on it, especially the CSOs and the state government and the central government. See, what we learn is that Kukijo people are for the last 20 months deprived of using our international airport at Imphal.
Right.
In case they have to travel, they have to go, especially Churachandpur side, they go all the way to Aizawl, say 18 hours journey on a very bad road, and the Kangpokpi area, they go to Dimapur. Again, very troublesome and a very expensive kind of journey.
Right.
Of course, now we learn informally that a few Kuki students or some people are using Imphal airport with the help of the central security forces. They come from outside, they are picked up and they are taken to the Kukijo. But this is some kind of informal. I don't know how far it is correct. But if there can be some kind of understanding, like he says, I think again medical facilities, lots of Kuki people are required to have access to the kidney dialysis and treatment of cancer. Those facilities are not there in those Kuki areas,
Right.
They are deprived of these facilities, they are yearning for these facilities. If there can be some understanding, then for such cases, there will be no harm, I think they will be escorted by the security forces, and Meiteis also agree that they will not be harmed in route, because and in the similar way, if Meiteis are also allowed to have a passage to Dimapur,
Yes.
through Kangpokpi,
Right.
the Meitei drivers or Meitei passengers, that can also, really help in building up some confidence, between the communities. But this can only be done with the initiatives of the civil society organizations, but I don't know how far it is possible to have a communication between the civil society organizations, between the Kukijo area and the Meiteis. I don't know, because especially the Kukijo civil society organizations, they are working under the direct dictates of the the SHU signatories,
Right.
They don't have much freedom, whereas our Delhi-based CSOs have some kind of freedom, So to that extent, both central government and the state government, and they can take the help of the civil society organizations to facilitate opening of these humanitarian corridors to, promote some kind of affection, some kind of understanding between the two communities, On the other hand, as ATHOUBA says, Kukijo communities would like this violence to continue,
Right.
just to justify their demand for separate administration.
Correct.
Once there is peace, their demand for separate administrations will become weakened, So this kind of vested interests are there. So ultimately, the central government has to disarm all the armed people on either side, you know. Without disarming, just saying end violence, you know, central government told the cookies, you end the violence first. I think it may just fall on the deaf ear. Nothing will happen.
Right.
They have to really take concrete measures to bring peace first to Manipur.
Right.
And without involvement, active involvement of the central government and the state government, it is difficult to see peace coming back, you know, so quickly, because there are some vested interests who are really dictating the terms.
Totally correct. Thank you so much, Mr. NABAKISHORE. So, humanitarian corridor is the need of the hour. In conclusion, the situation in Manipur presents a complex and multifaceted challenge. On one hand, we see the Kuki community's ongoing violence and provocation fueled by the separatist agenda and demands for autonomy. These actions have not only deepened ethnic...
Can I add one point?
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
Sorry. Actually, I just want to quote one statement made by the former Chief Justice of Manipur High Court, retired Chief Justice, Justice Siddharth Midul.
Right.
He has repeatedly stated that during his tenure in Manipur High Court as a Chief Justice, he had visited several IDP relief camps in both sides of the community, and what he heard from them, something common, is that every IDPs, despite all the facilities, all the comforts that the government and other groups have provided, they always end to one simple demand, that is, we want to return to our home.
Right.
Those people displaced from their respective homes across community lines.
Right.
Even IDPs in the Kuki areas who wants to return to Imphal, to their respective homes. MEITEIs from Moreh, Churachandpur and elsewhere, they also want to return back to Moreh and Churachandpur. This is a one basic demand, very simple demand by those IDPs, and it defies all those politically motivated agendas and all sort of things.
Right.
So this is very, very, what do you say, very human kind of approach that they are making towards the justice. But what we ponder is the Constitution of India fails to guarantee those people for their right to home, right to property, right to basic medical facilities over the past 2 years.
Yes.
It's a long time.
Yes.
And the Constitution itself also cannot guarantee the half of the 3 million population to get free access to the national highways, which are our lifeline.
Right.
So this constitutional crisis in the state of Manipur also needs to be looked into. It also needs to be addressed at the earliest. Otherwise, the population of the state, the citizen of the country, will have already started started thinking that have we been not guaranteed by the Constitution of India? Why our peoples are being, despite the guarantee, fundamental rights they deserve to have, the guarantees that the Constitution has provided, why isn't it being, delivered to the people for so long? This is a very, pertinent questions raised by, the former retired judge.
IDPs. Okay, thank you so much once again, Mr. KHURAIJAM. These have the fundamental rights of the people been violated? That's the main question. So as we reflect on these contrasting approaches, it's essential to ask ourselves, can peace truly be built in an environment of constant provocation and violence? While the MEITEI community's dedication to peace is commendable, it is vital to address the underlying grievances that drive the Kuki separatist movement. Only through dialogue, understanding and shared commitment to peace can a lasting solution be found for all communities in Manipur. Let this debate remind us that the path to peace is rarely simple, but it is a journey worth pursuing for the sake of future generations. Before we leave, I'd like to thank our panelists once again for joining us in the Manipur Files. And to our viewers, thank you for watching SKTV. Please leave your feedback or the topic that you'd like us to cover in the next edition of the Manipur Files. We hope you'll join us again next Sunday for our English edition of the Manipur Files. I'm Utpala Longjam, your host, signing off. Have a good night and a great week.